What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more new features in iOS 17.4. We're going to talk about the major change coming to iMessage, new iPhone 16 colors, Apple's new application, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And as always, if you want to stay updated with everything going on in the world of Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and check out the Apple Den newsletter, which goes out once a week. All right, so let's start with even more iOS 17.4 changes because yes, we just got the fourth beta and there are even more changes than what we've seen previously, which is crazy. So anyways, if you're wondering when the final release of 17.4 is going to be out, I will touch on that later on in the video. Just check the timestamps down in the description. So the first thing, you might have already noticed it if you're looking at my home screen very closely, but for podcasts, the background of the widget now matches the cover art for that podcast, just like you see with Apple Music. So before, with podcasts, it would just be purple. There would be a purple background no matter what you were listening to, but now it shows the background matching the cover art of that specific podcast. So like this one is a dark color. You can see it has some brown in it, and that's why it has this appearance on the home screen. So Apple is just continuing to make podcasts very similar to Apple Music, because another change in 17.4 is the floating now playing bar down at the bottom. So if you go to browse or anywhere else where you're not in the actual, screen of the podcast, you will see the now playing bar looks just like it does in Apple Music, which was not the case before this update. Now, also I noticed a change inside of our settings. So if we go into settings and then to messages, and then down to the bottom, we have messages for business. Now that's been there since beta 1, but with beta 4, there's a new toggle in here. So before it was just empty. It didn't really say anything. There was no toggle, but now there's a toggle for business updates. And it says get updates on your orders and other transactions if you've chosen to receive them on a business's website. And something else that just popped up with iOS 17.4 beta 4 is this new splash screen right here that says App Store would like to install an application. And it says that you need to verify the information before installing. So I was not able to replicate this on my device, and I believe that to be because of my region in the US. But if you do have an EU iPhone, we're going to get, side loading and third-party app stores, you will now see this splash screen probably the first time you go to install an application. And it basically just makes you confirm that you're installing the application that you think you're installing it. It's Apple kind of just making you, double check and make sure it's a legit version of that application and not like somebody trying to imitate Google Chrome in this example. All right, so now let's talk about the major news that came this week about iMessage, because iMessage is about to get a whole lot more secure than it was before, which it's always been pretty secure, but this is a major update for iMessage, and it's already implemented in iOS 17.4 beta 4, along with the latest betas for macOS, watchOS, and everything else. So Apple just this week announced a new groundbreaking post-quantum cryptographic protocol for iMessage, and they said this is going to be the most significant cryptographic security upgrade in iMessage history with the introduction of PQ3. And they say that PQ3 has the strongest security properties of any at-scale messaging protocol in the world. Now, I had no idea what any of that meant. All of that went over my head the first time I read it, so I did have to do some research, and I found that Apple is trying to combat against future quantum computers. Nothing that exists now can crack iMessage's, encrypted code, like all the codes on the back end that, all your messages are encrypted through. Nothing can crack that at the moment, but in the future, a future quantum computer might be able to crack the code to iMessage encryption and just be able to read all of your data. So that's what they are doing now. They're kind of, putting this PQ3 in place to prevent anything from happening to our data in the future. So you might be thinking that Signal has done this before. This is nothing new, and you would be right. Signal is another messaging platform that has done this. They did this last year, but Apple is taking what they did and basically making it a little bit better. They're taking it a step further. So Apple calls Signal's implementation of this level 2, and Apple's implementation is level 3, and that's all outlined in this chart here that Apple shared, which is pretty interesting. And basically how Apple achieved level 3 is very complicated. I'm not even going to describe it, but you can read on the screen right now. I'm just going to explain it like I'm 5, and I wrote this in my newsletter as well. So think of it like a secret code that changes regularly to keep your messages safe. That's basically what this new version, this new PQ3 does. That's the extra step that it takes over what Signal already did. It's the same thing Signal did, but they just added this new secret code that changes regularly. And if a bad guy ever figures out your old code, PQ3 has a cool trick to fix it by creating a new code that the bad guy cannot guess from the old one. So that way that even if somebody sneaks a peek at your messages once, they cannot keep doing it. It's like having a self-fixing lock on your messages, and iMessage is the first ever to have this feature. It's Apple's own implementation. So if all of that still went over your head, and I don't blame you because it's very technical, just know that iMessage is getting a lot more secure than it already was, which it's already been secure, like I said. So this is nice. And again, it is already in 17.4, and it will be in all Apple platforms once 17.4 gets released to the public. All right, so anyways, I do want to also talk about the CarPlay change that came with iOS 17.4 beta 4, because in my What's New video, I briefly mentioned that this is part of the CarPlay 2.0 update, but I made a mistake. It is not actually part of the CarPlay 2.0 update. This feature is available now for select vehicles. And somebody on Instagram actually tagged me in a reel of them showing this feature in action. And you can see the map configuration button now swaps the displays. So I've seen a couple of people talk about this. You can see it just shows more information up there on the gauge cluster now. So you can see more about your turns and your maneuvers up there, whereas before you would have to, look over at the main CarPlay screen to the right of you. So again, that feature is available now on 17.4 beta 4, and of course in the final release for like the Polestar, for some Volvos, even for some BMWs, just select vehicles that have the CarPlay already integrated into the dash and that second screen over here as well. Most of the cars that have that will get this feature. So easily the biggest change in iOS 17.4 beta 4 was inside of the battery section, and right away you can see the change, and I already talked about this in my What's New video, but the battery health now shows normal right there. So before iOS 17.4, it would just say battery health and charging optimization, and that was it. You would have to go into a menu, but now it shows that your battery health is normal without having to go into that menu. So a lot of people are saying, why is this a big deal? Why is it like, what's the matter? And the reason is because a lot of people would get anxiety and they would get obsessed with checking that percentage all the time, and they would have to go into that menu to see it. But now if somebody were just in their settings and they went to battery, they would always be able to see that their battery health is normal, and most people are not going to take the additional step to go into that menu and then see the maximum capacity is at blank percent, which you can see mine is at 100%, and then up top it does show battery health is normal, along with the cycle count and the first use and manufacturer date. Now, this is only available for the iPhone 15 series, and of course it will be for all future iPhones as well. That is the unfortunate part about this, but it does have something to do with the cycle count that we've seen previously. Now, the other really important thing that came out this week is that if you tap on the About Battery and Warranty right here, we noticed that under here, under the main paragraph and headline, it shows that the original battery was designed to retain 80% capacity at 1,000 cycles. Now, that was interesting because Apple previously said only 500 cycles is what it's going to take for your battery to retain 80%. Like, it's only going to retain 80% after 500 cycles, but they doubled it in this messaging here. So what was up with that? Well, 9to5Mac actually got information from Apple, and it looks like Apple actually, the batteries outperformed what they even expected. So the iPhone 15 batteries last longer than Apple even originally intended. So this change to the battery cycle lifespan only applies to the 15 series, but Apple is looking into older iPhone models as well to see if they could potentially outperform Apple's original expectations in terms of battery lifespan. So this is just a win across the board when we're seeing that the batteries are lasting longer than anybody expected. And real quick, I just wanted to remind you guys about the contest going on in the Apple Den Discord server. So first place gets a $100 Apple gift card, and you can see we have first, second, and third place prizes right there. So it's completely free to join the Discord server and also to enter into this contest. So just check it out. I will leave this exact post linked down in the description below. Also this week, Apple released a brand new application called Apple Sports. So this is available now on the iPhone if you're on iOS 17.2 and later. So this is what the application looks like. This is the splash screen you get when you first go into there. And the first thing you'll notice is how simplistic and how minimal and how fast it is, which to me personally, when I'm looking for scores of games, I want it to be quick. I don't want any news articles or anything like that. So I love this application just right away. So you have yesterday, today, and upcoming, and a very nice and easy interface. If you tap into there, you can see the summary, the play-by-play, you can see the box score, you can see all your stats, you can see the rankings down there, you can see the betting odds. So there are live betting odds in here, which actually kind of surprised me. And you have all these different views right here. You could also swipe to go to the next games. It just looks really awesome. You can swipe down from there. All the Apple gestures work in here. And if you tap on the menu up in the top right, you can, have your leagues, your teams, all of that. So you see the leagues and teams that you care about up top, which is awesome. And it's only showing, leagues that are actually going on right now. So like MLB, for example, it's not showing. And for NFL and NCAA college football, those will be added later once those seasons start. But overall, I think this application is great. So if you're into sports, definitely check out the Apple Sports application. I love it. And then as far as the performance and the battery life goes with iOS 17.4 Beta 4, I've been running it on my main device, my iPhone 15 Pro Max here, and it's been running great. I mean, the public beta came out the same day as the developer beta, so I've been using it for this pretty much the same amount of time as my test device here. So I've had a good few days of messing with the software, and performance so far feels pretty good. I've not really noticed any difference or improvement from Beta 3. Beta 3 is where it was an improvement over Betas 1 and 2, and Beta 4 is about the same. You can see the Geekbench scores right there. Nothing too crazy, but when it comes to battery life, let me pull up my main phone here. We can see that over the last 24 hours, I have been using my phone quite a bit, a little bit more than I usually do. But if we go over the last 10 days, you can see how it looks there. So the software came out on Tuesday. I was using my phone quite a bit on Tuesday and Wednesday, but you can see how the battery and the activity line up right there. It might actually be better. And I said this in my What's New video, but I think the battery life might actually be better in Beta 4. So you guys need to let me know. Let me know if your battery life is better or worse with Beta 4 down in the comments below or over on the Apple Den Discord server. We always talk about the betas over there as well. All right, so now let's talk about what to expect next from Apple. So next week is going to be the week of the 26th, February 26th, and I would expect to see the RC release next week, most likely on Tuesday, February 27th. That is when Apple typically releases beta software updates. The RC is technically a beta. It is the final release, but it's technically the beta because we are beta testers and it's before the final release actually comes out. So we should see that next week. And then the week following that, on the week of March 4th, is when we should see iOS 17.4 release to the public. My guess is that it will be on Monday, March 4th, but it could also be on that Tuesday or Wednesday. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And let's start with the latest rumors about the iPhone 16 Pro and some potential new colors that we might be seeing. So this update comes from Majin Buu, who has kind of a mixed track record. He has been right in the past, but he's also been wrong on some things. But he says that based on the information I was able to find, the new colors of the iPhone 16 Pro could be desert yellow, a desert titanium, similar to the gold of the 14 Pro, but deeper and heavier, and then also a cement gray or a titanium gray, which is a shade of space gray, similar to that used on the iPhone 6. So I would be kind of surprised if Apple did both of these, because I think that the natural titanium color, which is what I have on my main device, I would be very shocked if they got rid of that. I mean, that was the top selling color for the 15 Pros last year, so I would be very surprised if they just took that away, but we'll have to wait and see. What do you think about those colors? Now let's move on to a pair of products that we might actually see within the next month, and that is the iPad Air and iPad Pro. So Apple has been rumored to be hosting a March event, or at the very least releasing products via press release on Apple's website, but the iPads are the talk of the town. They have been the talk of the town for a while now, so we might be seeing those iPads in March. Now 9to5Mac just dropped the full dimensions of of the new iPad Air and the iPad Pro. So taking a look at the measurements, the new upcoming 11-inch iPad Pro is thinner at 5.1 millimeters compared to 5.9, and then the new upcoming 12.9-inch iPad Pro is also thinner at 5 millimeters versus 6.4 millimeters previously, and those are for the iPad Pros. And then below that we have the 12.9-inch iPad Air. So this is the new screen size for the iPad Air, and those dimensions are interesting. We have a 280.6 by 214.9 by 6 millimeters. So it will be thicker, of course, than the new iPad Pros. So I think there's a strong chance that we see those new iPads next month in March. And hopefully we have an event so I can go live here on YouTube and react to it live with you guys. Okay, so now let's talk about the Apple Ring. So you guys know those rings that you can wear on your fingers that track your sleep and all your health data, your steps, all of that. Yeah, well, Apple is allegedly still working on this Apple Ring that we've heard about for over 10 years now. I mean, before the Apple Watch even existed, we were hearing about this iRing or Apple Ring that was going to come out, and we never saw anything about that. Now, Apple has been getting patents for many years now, ever since really it got first introduced, in terms of patents for it over 10 years ago. So Apple is allegedly still working on this, and a new rumor that just came out from Electronic Times sheds light on the possibility of this coming sooner rather than later. And they say that it's thanks to Samsung's plans to release the Galaxy Ring in July, which that's not how Apple operates. They don't wait for Samsung to do something and then just do it all of a sudden because of that. So that was pretty silly of them to mention as a theory. But anyways, they said that Apple is also speeding up the development of Apple Ring by registering patents related to smart rings one after another. In November of last year, they filed a new patent, and this is a technology that can install a near-field wireless communication circuit and work with other devices. It's estimated that it will be used to control smartphones, tablets, etc. So that sounds pretty interesting, and honestly, I would consider wearing an Apple Ring or an iRing if it had a compelling enough, use case. Like right now, I don't see any reason to wear an Apple Ring because I have my Apple Watch Ultra, which works just fine. Maybe if it had 2-month battery life or something like that, I would consider using it over the Apple Watch. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Would you wear an Apple Ring? And if so, what would it take? Or if not, I should say, what would it take for you to want to wear an Apple Ring on your finger? So you know how every year a report comes out that shows the top 10 smartphones in the world? Well, the new one just came out for 2023, and it shows that Apple had 7 of the top 10 spots for the best-selling smartphones. That was crazy to see. So you can see that the iPhone 14 is in first with 3.9% of global iPhones. That's global. That's an insane percentage. And then the iPhone 14 Pro Max in second, iPhone 14 Pro in third, and you can see all the way down. So pretty much the top 7 were all iPhones. And then under that, we have some of the cheaper Galaxy phones. I just find these charts and this data so fascinating because with such a big market, I mean, the smartphone market is bonkers. It's huge. So the fact that there's only 2 manufacturers that take up the entire top 10 is just insane to me. And then finally, as tradition, let's talk about another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a security guard who had just finished his shift at a mall in LA went to park his golf cart that he rode around patrolling on. And when his coworkers came in for the next shift, they noticed that the golf cart was gone. It was missing. So they went back to watch the surveillance footage and noticed that a man got in the golf cart after the first security guard parked it and then rode off with the golf cart. But little did the thief know, even security guards use AirTags. That's right, there was an AirTag hidden underneath of the seat of the golf cart, so police were able to track down the golf cart to the area where it was stopped on the map via the Find My application. And once they arrived on scene, officers recovered the stolen golf cart and were able to arrest the suspect based on the surveillance footage and the description of the man. And this guy was 44 years old, and he was arrested and charged with suspicion of possessing a vehicle known to be stolen and taking a vehicle without the owner's consent. So that is a new one. I've been doing these stories for a long time, and that is a new one. I did not know that even security guards put AirTags in their, patrol golf carts. That is funny. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, I would appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. Also, check out the Apple Den newsletter and all the other links down there in that description below. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.